Hello.
Hi.
Guten Tag, I should say.
Guten Morgen. Guten Abend. Depends on when they're listening to this. So hello is easier because we don't have to decide.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, this is the Carmudgeon show. I am Derek Tam-Scott. We are driven by Hagerty. That is a Jason Cammisa. He's also driven by Hagerty.
I'm not.
Hagerty drives him.
Hagerty drives me.
This episode of the Carmudgeon show is about the Porsche 911 Turbo, which is celebrating its 50th birthday. Is it December 2nd?
Well, no one knows the exact date. I mean, somebody
At which
probably
it was
does.
birthed.
But no, 2025 is the 50th anniversary of the 911 Turbo. I was asked to take part in a documentary on this, so that launches this week. If this episode doesn't air on Monday, it's because we've held it a day or two just to coincide with the release of that video. So we have a grand Porsche Turbo celebration.
This is definitely a celebration of the Turbo.
The documentary is a celebration of the 50 years of Turbo.
This episode maybe is doing less celebrating, if we're honest.
It's explaining why
we prefer other variants.
Yes.
Besides the Turbo.
Exactly.
But that's a personal decision that you should make on the basis of your preferences and demographics.
You like to be wrong, go right. I'm just kidding.
Right.
The world is made of plenty of flavors. If you like vanilla and I like chocolate, why are you wrong? But hold on. Never mind. Clap.
I'm going to clap.
He's clapping at my stupidity. And we're going to start the episode now. Typical youths. Get off your phone, Derek. We're recording. This podcast has already started.
Is it?
It has already started.
I was learning some important context.
Oh, you're doing research for this episode? Well, no
I
sense.
had
You can
44 seconds of research.
You can continue to do that while I show you the t-shirt that I was supposed to be wearing, but it's too cold here, so I have a hoodie on instead.
Okay, Jason, tell us about your t-shirt.
It says jasonsentme.com.
Are we gonna talk about tires or anything like that?
This podcast.
We're talking about Hagerty and the insurance products that it provides.
Yes, because Hagerty is a car
We're
insurance.
both subscribers to that.
We are members. Oh, there's a spider.
You want me to extinguish it?
Yep. Derek is a murderer. You saw it here first. Hagerty is an insurance company by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. And,
is that going to go on my permanent record?
Your Hagerty record?
Yeah.
I don't think your insurance company keeps track of how many spiders you kill, but that was fairly violent. If only you could be so decisive when you clap. At
the sound of one hand clapping.
One hand destroying the life of a poor innocent thing. Where did it come from? Like, has it been on this table the whole time while you were doing research?
I don't know. Okay, so you have a t-shirt.
I have a t-shirt.
jasonsentme.com.
That's just to go to get a free quote. Hagerty does many things differently than other insurance companies. One of which is, and I think the most important thing from my perspective is that this is agreed value insurance. Hagerty calls it guaranteed value, and that is you engage in a conversation with your insurance company at the time of writing the insurance policy where you agree on the car's value. So if anything happens, that's what you're paid. It's none of this BS, if I can use that term, with other car companies, like you get
insurance
hit.
Companies.
Other insurance companies. Sorry, you get hit, and the other guy's insurance company's like, "Well, see that nice Porsche back there? We'll give you $5 for it." And you're like, "Yeah, but it's actually worth $6." And then there's no fighting. And that to me, as someone who's had 3 big claims in 20-something years, 28 years on my cars, is very important to me because I had to fight to keep the Scirocco. I did not have to fight to keep the E30 when I hit a deer in it, because I had it sufficiently insured. And then same thing with the Rover, which is running. In fact, if this episode goes live when I think it will...
Is today December 1st?
Today might be December 2nd or 3rd. We don't know at the time of recording. We may hold this episode, we may be a day late to
and perhaps even $1 short.
Probably, but not if insured by Hagerty, then we'd be $1 ahead.
That Jason condones committing insurance fraud.
$1 ahead? No, I didn't say you stole $1. You can make $1, I guess. Yeah, I don't. Do not get me fired over this shit, you bastard. The Rover video is scheduled to go live around now too, where you get to watch the Rover starting.
Turn over.
This is the car that would have been totaled if I did not have agreed value replacement cost insurance on it. And so I'm very grateful to Hagerty for that. So they get the plug. And if you go to jasonsemi.com, you get a free quote. Anyway.
And it gets attributed to Jason.
Yeah. And I can point to my boss and basically say, look at what I did.
Yep. I'm selling insurance.
I'm not. I'm not licensed to sell
That's right.
insurance.
You're not insurance. You're referring people
it's a referral. I think it's technically a referral code, whatever. I don't care. Either way. Go to Hagerty.com/
Well, I'm selling used cars.
You
not
actually
exact
do it.
moment, but I do sell used cars, yes.
Yeah, I'm not licensed to do. I'm not even licensed to drive anymore, but luckily no one knows. Never mind. I did get quite a ticket filming the episode that we're talking about today. Because
a performance award?
I thought a performance award. That's not exactly how the police officer described it, but I thought I was in a zone of speed that was much larger than I was, and I was doing way beyond that. And so when he said, "Do you know how fast you're going?" I'm like, "A pretty good idea." And I'm thinking like, "Why is this guy so mad?" It turns out I was in a 35, not a 55. And the speed that I was doing was far in excess of 55, but it was sort of, reasonably speeding. Not so much when it's a 35. Oh God.
So how'd that go?
I'll be getting a lawyer. Anyway, we should be sponsored by somebody who does those ambulance
ticket fighters,
ticketfighter.com or some whatever. Oh, we'll see. More importantly, I was out in Nevada filming a special on 50 years of the Porsche 911 Turbo.
Has it been 50 years already? It feels like just yesterday
in 1975
that it was introduced
to 2025. 50 years. I'm a little bit worried that the audience is going to receive this and make it as a paid piece by Porsche. And so I'm going to say right off the bat, Porsche did not pay me a cent. I was asked to do this. This is a Hagerty video in concert with Mobile One.
Were you that complimentary that people might confuse you for having been paid? I thought you didn't like those cars.
I don't like those cars, but that's not part of the story. The story is, let's talk about this mark that has made it by 50 years, right? And so, my thought, I wrote my segments, and the voiceover that I did. So I'm the intro, and then I'm the narrator throughout the piece. And I don't really say anything I disagree with. Looking back on it, maybe I would have phrased one thing. I called it the pinnacle of the 911 lineup. The script that I wrote was actually the pinnacle of the regular 911 lineup. That's how it's positioned, product planning wise. It's the peak of it. I would call the GT cars the pinnacle of the lineup. In fact, Porsche technically would call the GT2. I would say no, it's the naturally aspirated GT3 that is actually the high point, but that's my personal opinion.
You could also easily do this by looking at the price tag.
That's exactly, yeah. But either way, no, I was asked to do sort of celebration piece of this. No problem at all. I drove one 930. We've talked about this before once, very briefly. Hated it.
Really? Which one?
The one that we were on a rally with. It was
the gray one.
I don't know.
Dark gray.
It was. Sure.
Yes, it was an early intercooled 3.3.
Yeah. This one was, so more importantly, I thought, I'm happy. I'm always happy to do research, happy to delve in. And so I researched, obviously, the sort of entire lineage of the 911 Turbo, and I narrated this video. Henry Catchpole's in the video. He did a phenomenal job. We gave him like 2 pieces of information, and he went off and did a review, a very quickie sort of review of the 992.2 Turbo S, which is the new one with electric turbos. That's now a hybrid. And we hit every generation. So 930, which is the original, 964, 993, 996, 997, 991, 92. It was fun. It's a 40-minute-ish video. It's in final edit now. Kind of an interesting.
It should be live around the same time.
Should be live around so if this episode's a day late, we've held it for a day or two just to coincide. Patrick Long was in the video. He talked about car. Jeff Zwart was in a couple segments. And we got some pretty cool cars. Not we. I had nothing to do with it, but the production company got some pretty cool cars in there, like GT2s and stuff like that. So I think we should talk about 911 Turbo.
Which this is not.
That is not. But it
by
is
a choice.
Air-cooled 911. By choice. Look right into that camera and tell them why you chose to have the inferior car.
I chose the superior car because I like throttle response and compression.
Yeah.
I've owned a turbo. I've owned a 911 turbo before.
I think you've mentioned that car before.
Yes, I have.
So, all right. So have you driven? So the car that we opened the episode in, I had a 992.1 911 Turbo S 50th anniversary edition. But really the car that we opened the story with is a 1975 930. So this is a 3-liter.
Correct.
6.5 to 1 compression.
Right.
260 horse.
No intercooler.
No intercooler.
So was it a US or non-US car?
I don't know. How do I tell? It was gorgeous.
Yeah. I can
so
tell you
pretty.
if you show me a picture of it.
I will. My phone's over there. It was so pretty.
Yeah, you had Viper Green metallic.
Oh my God. I mean, it was just like, I did while you were in the bathroom earlier, I was taking pictures of your car back here. There's something about the 911 shape that just, wow. Probably because the Volkswagen Beetle is my first love and it's the same basic shape. Mm-hmm. Don't get mad at me. But that flared out green thing with the fucking hips and the turbo badge, the inverse sticker on it that says turbo. If only if you cross your
negative.
Eyes. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And then I absolutely hated driving it.
Yeah, they're miserable.
Okay, moving on. No, I'm kidding.
Well, this has been a short episode of the Carmudgeon Show.
So
Thank you for joining us this week.
The 7.5 to 1, 3.3 liter intercooled car that I drove.
7 to 1.
7 to 1?
7 to 1.
Was beyond dead off boost. Mm-hmm. This one actually wasn't as bad as that one was. It was, make no mistake, miserable. And we make we have sort of a big long section, kind of dramatized section where I'm floored for about 4 minutes, giving a whole speech. I'm like, yeah, still floored, blah, 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 blah. Because the lag is genuinely atrocious. And the power band is small. So nothing. Genuinely, holy shit, fast. And then shift. And then for a split second, because then immediately red line, shift, and then you're waiting again, longer and longer and longer, and it goes again. But this one wasn't as bad as the other one. Mm. Have you driven a 3-liter? Mm-hmm. Is that the one you owned?
No, I owned a 3.3.
Okay. And which the 3-liters are worse?
They all suck. I don't know which one is worse.
There it is. It's been brewing for like 10 minutes. That sneeze.
I think that the 3.0s are worse. It could just be variation car to car now that they're 50 years old, as we're observing, celebrating. Yeah. But yeah, I find them to be all pretty offensive.
I still have to sneeze again. Did you spray pepper in the studio or something?
Okay, so
am I allergic to?
Do we want to start?
Allergic to turbos.
Yeah, that we already know you're allergic to turbos. Do we want to start with some context about where this car came from, or do you want to talk about? I don't know how encompassing would we like to be with this discussion? Let's talk about it.
I mean, you have very strong opinions about turbos. I have very strong opinions about turbos.
They work well in racing.
They certainly worked well, and so the racing version of the 930 was the 935, which had a slightly different body on it, but that was the
9. So there was a turbo. Okay. Let's back up. Let's back up and start with. So the name Carrera is a name that Porsche started using in the 1950s for their highest performing cars, and they kind of saved the name Carrera for their most exciting cars until 1984 when it became the base model. So now we think of Carrera as being synonymous with the base model 911. That was not true for ages and ages. And so what used to be Carrera RS is what is now GT3 effectively. And so that lineage goes directly from Carrera RS to 996 GT3, 3 generations of Carrera RS. The original one, the 964, the 993, and then became the GT3. So the name Carrera used to mean something. And so the original turbo was called the Turbo Carrera for that reason, because they wanted to indicate that it was the highest performance car. The first Carrera 911, there was really only one Carrera 911, which is the RS in 73, came out in Paris in October of 72. And that was the first time they had used the Carrera name since they stopped making the 4-cam 356s. So normally 356s are single cam pushrod motors, and there was a 4-cam racing engine.
Well, single cam to 2-cam, right? If you can't call them single cam and then 4-cam. So it's 1 camber bank or no, hold on, you mean pushrod?
Yes.
1 total camshaft, not 1 overhead. Okay.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. So your choice in a 356, you get 1 cam or 4 cams. Right. And this thing was super sophisticated and it was gear driven and roller bearings, and just they cost $200,000 to rebuild them because there's so many damn moving parts and everything's gear driven and bevel this and all that happy horse shit. But incredible specific output, which was the goal. So in a 2-liter car, you could get 200 horsepower, and this car engine was available in the 356 and a whole bunch of other race cars too, like the 904, for example. And so Carrera name reappears for the first time on a 911 in 1973, and the reason why they did that was in order to go racing.
Which of course is the origin of the name Carrera.
Yes, Carrera means race in Spanish. And it was named after the Carrera Panamericana, the race in Mexico. And so this is Ferdinand Piech. We've talked about this before, but basically the Porsche spent a long time trying to win Le Mans and couldn't because they were running with 3-liter flat 8s, and this was at the same time that the GT40 is running with 7 liters. And for an event like Le Mans, they just couldn't get the power for long enough for the engines to sustain the level of power output necessary for them to go fast enough to win at Le Mans, which is also a fast track. And so an outright win at Le Mans had eluded them. So they did a clean sheet design. Ferdinand Piech, spent all the money in order to show the world what Porsche could do. Porsche was good at giant beating, but not good enough to do it with a 3-liter car against 7-liter cars at Le Mans, which is fast. So they do a clean sheet car. That's the 917. It's a first 12-cylinder Porsche. It's maybe the only 12-cylinder Porsche. It's a horizontally opposed air-cooled flat 12. It's 4.5 liters initially, and they had some reliability issues initially, but then they won Le Mans in 70 and 71 before the car was outlawed. The regulations limited it to, I think it was 3 liters for 72 and onward. So they spent all this money, they did win Le Mans, but then the car was illegal after 2 seasons, and Ferry Porsche was very cheap, and his nephew Ferdinand Piech had spent all this money, and then they end up with this white elephant thing where they're like, what do we do with this? So the answer was twofold. The first thing was to make a car that could race that was much cheaper based on existing ingredients, and that was what the Carrera RS was. And then the other thing that they did was there was this format called Can-Am in the United States that it was basically an open, unstructured, no restrictions type of racing. The bodywork, there had to be 2 seats, and the bodywork had to be enclosed, but other than that, there were no restrictions on aerodynamics or engine displacement or power output or any of that. And so initially the races were dominated by Lola and McLaren, mostly running big Chevy engines, like aluminum 7-liter, 7 or 8-liter engines. And then Porsche said, okay, we have this 917 thing. Since it's an unrestricted category, unlike endurance racing in Europe, we can run whatever we want in it. And so they put turbochargers on the 917.
On the flat 12.
On the flat 12, on the 12-cylinder 917. And so the cars, which had previously been running with 500 or 600 horsepower, naturally aspirated, and were deeply uncompetitive because the 8-liter Chevy engines made much more than that, like 900 horsepower. And these cars, by the way, weigh like 2,000 pounds. So the turbochargers made the 917 have real horsepower. I think it was like 11, 12, 13, 1,400 horsepower, maybe even more in qualifying trim. And they strapped drivers to them like Mark Donohue.
And let's be clear.
Yes. It felt like on. They're rocket ships.
Whatever, yeah.
And so Porsche has now started using turbocharging, and then at the same time, the RS, which was previously naturally aspirated, they started running those with turbochargers also, which was called the RSR, which was the racing version of the RS. They had a displacement adjustment factor, which would basically say if you ran forced induction, then you got less cylinder displacement. And so those were 2.14 liters with a turbocharger, which with their multiplier made it be 3 liters equivalent naturally aspirated. So Porsche starts running turbochargers in the early 70s in both the 911 based cars and these outlandish Can-Am cars. And Porsche absolutely dominated Can-Am in 72, 73. So that was good. They got 2 more racing years.
Revenge of Piech.
Out of the 917 after it was no longer allowed to do, Le Mans and endurance racing, which was much more structured, especially from 72 onward. So then in order to keep racing these cars, they had to build a road car that was turbocharged based on the GT rules, and enter the 930. So the 930 was a turbocharged 911 that it didn't really replace the Carrera RS. It was a very different type of car.
In terms of racing effort, I guess one could say it did, but certainly not in personality.
Yes, and not in terms of the character of the car or the way they were trimmed. The RS, because they were trying to build naturally aspirated, they were building naturally aspirated cars, and so they were really concerned about reducing weight. And so that there was a very stripped down GT3-ish ethos to the Carrera RS. And the 930 was a luxury car in the sense that they came standard with rear windshield wipers and headlight washers and sunroofs and full leather trim and air conditioning and all that stuff. It was almost like a Mercedes-ification or like a GT-ification of the 911 in a way that was very opposite to the Carrera RS. But the performance was very different from a Mercedes because the cars made a lot of power in a straight line.
In a straight line. So when I did the research on this, 1975 was the first year of full emissions regs in the US. Car and Driver tested a 930 and it did 0 to 60 in 4.9 seconds. And the next closest car to that was, I think it was 7.7. So it was 3 seconds longer. Think about that. I mean, this wasn't just holy shit fast. This was Bugatti Veyron fast when compared to everything else on the road. Mm-hmm. Now, there were some Euro cars that we couldn't get in 1975. For example, the
Countaches and Boxers and Aston Martin.
You'll often read that the 930 was the fastest car in the world. It was not. It was probably the quickest accelerating car in the world, certainly in the US. It was the fastest car you could buy at 156 mile an hour top speed. Fastest car in America because we couldn't have a Countach, which did 170 something. Mm-hmm. And the Daytona also did
170 something, but it disappeared after 73.
In the US.
And elsewhere.
Yeah.
And we didn't get its replacement. That replacement was the Boxer, and that was Euro only.
So when you say fast,
yes.
I mean 3 seconds quicker to 60 than the next closest
When it's on
car.
boost, it's unreal how fast it is, and when it's off boost, it's unreal how slow it is.
To this day, I mean, so I had Anthony Esposito in the car for me for one of the things, and he asked me before we got in the car, "What do you think?" I'm like, "You will not believe." Anthony has a GTI, a Mark 7 GTI. He's had plenty. He's driven everything really, really fast, and I'm like, "It is faster than your GTI," and he just gave me a look like bullshit. Stop exaggerating, Cammisa. So we're kind of driving around, and I finally let it get full boost in probably second gear, whatever it was. And he just let out a holy shit. It is, exclaim out loud fast. It is.
Yep. When it's on boost.
GTI quick or modern GTI quick or more. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow, fast.
Yeah. Boost starts at 3,500. And it's a 4-speed, and the gear ratios are very wide.
Really widely spaced.
Yeah. And so if they were able to get 4.9, you bet your bottom dollar that was a red line clutch dump.
That was probably a red line clutch slip because you can't let the revs drop.
Yeah. So you slip it to maintain boost to make sure you stay above 4,000 RPM the entire time.
Incredibly abusive. I would have never done that. But when we were filming, the camera car would move out, and you'd hear on the radio, Anthony on the radio, "All right, we're moving out. All right, come on, pass us." And he was like, "Pass us, Jason. Pass us, Jason. Jason." And he thought I wasn't paying attention. And our radios are set up that we can't both talk at the same time. And I'm waiting. And finally I'm like, "I've been floored since before you started moving." Like I saw they were about to move out, and it's just,
yeah.
We were at a couple thousand feet of elevation. I think nothing, 2,000 or 3,000 feet, but it was staggering how long it took for that thing to respond. And then once it did, like we said, genuinely fast.
Yeah. All hell breaks loose. And the trick that the race car drivers would use is to keep your left foot brake and keep your foot on the throttle to maintain the turbo speed. But that doesn't work in the road cars. I've tried.
It does. Oh, I did. I mean, I had to do it because Anthony would be.
Yeah, but it doesn't make it go fast. Like on a race car, you'll actually go fast if you do that.
Well, yeah, filming is a strange thing because, we're coming around a corner. He's sort of looking at the camera, waiting for the horizon to become, and then all of a sudden he needs me to blow by. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sort of hiding out of range, and I need to be able to move when he said, so I would drag brakes at full throttle and just, and then let it go, and the car would take off. But a challenge. a challenging car to drive quickly.
If you are able to stay in the boost, it's magic. But if you can't,
the gears
like
are too widely.
on a racetrack though, if you have properly chosen gear ratios on the right racetrack, it's unmatched how fast those cars are. But if you don't have those things at your disposal, if you can't do that, then it's in the real world, it's an extremely frustrating car to drive.
I would venture to say, having not driven them back to back, a regular Carrera, so the turbo is 260 horsepower on a regular Carrera. The Carrera was 160 in 1975, according to Car and Driver anyway. So 100 horsepower difference between them. I would venture to say that the NA car was markedly quicker in the real world than the turbo car was. Yeah. But big, huge flared rear end, the wheel test
front
spoiler.
end too.
Front end too?
Yep.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't look visual. I mean, I looked
front end is wider and the rear end.
Car's stunning. Plus plaid seats, which makes me happy in this particular car. I did not. The only one thing that stood out to me that was amazing were the brakes. And apparently, this early car has like
you have the alloy S calipers, which they upgraded.
They upgraded later. They were unbelievable. Like this car stopped on a dime. The amount of additional brake force that you would get on a just rock hard pedal, they felt amazing.
Yes.
Truly unbelievable.
Every torsion bar 911 is like this. Really? They're really easy to modulate. They're firm and they feel wooden, but there's a direct linearity between how much force you apply and how much retardation you get. They're extremely great for modulation.
Threshold brake. Yeah. It was truly unbelievable. The rest of the car, I have a hard time with 911s. And so you speak this language, you drive these cars regularly. The bottom hinge pedals give a distinct arc. That's kind of the
I don't
wrong
even
way.
notice it. I know everyone complains about it. I don't notice it.
It's not a complaint from me, but it's definitely like you meet someone who's got a really, really thick Scottish accent or some, thick accent of any sort. And it takes a second for you to start to map out what their vowels sound and how, like, try to understand them. I feel that way every time I get in an air-cooled car. The driving position is weird. The pedals are weird. The controls are weird. The shifters are all terrible. Terrible's the wrong word.
Until 1987.
Right. All of these air-cooled cars speak a language that I'm not fluent in and always take me a long minute to get used to. And what I thought was this 1975 Porsche, if I got into a 1975 Golf by comparison, I think I would have an easier time in the Golf. Now I'm familiar with a Mark I Volkswagen, but the Golf felt 15 years newer. It is.
It is, yes.
It felt like an old. It would have felt like an old car in 1975 already.
Yes, I mean so that transmission, which is, I don't know if it's an improvement over the 901. The 901 was the first 5-speed Porsche gearbox. It's a dogleg. This was the 915, which came out in 72, which is not a dogleg. And I remember reading like articles about the Carrera from 1974, 75, and they were complaining about the transmission being old-fashioned then. And then, don't worry, they kept it in production for another dozen years until 1986 was the last year you could get that transmission. It's a vague shifter that has no centering in the 3/4 axis, so good luck finding a gear. And every one of them is different as the bushings wear, so that's also festive, I guess. And they're not super durable gearboxes either, which is why the turbos have 4 speeds and not 5, is because the 5-speed gearbox was not up to the challenge. So all that was rectified with the new G50 gearbox that they introduced in 1987 for the Carrera, and it wasn't available in the 930 until 89. Right. Which helps. You have more closer space gear ratios. It makes a big difference. Like, I think that the car crosses, when it goes from a 4-speed to a 5-speed, it crosses the threshold from like unusably frustrating to tolerable when you put the 5-speed in. It still has the same character, but there's just the thing that's most objectionable about these 4-speed cars is there are certain situations where you're like, I would like to get over there as quickly as possible, or I would like to move out now, and the car's just like, that's not available. You can't do it. There's no gear you can choose that will give you that outcome, so you must wait. Right. And that's extremely frustrating for someone who likes, a responsive, naturally aspirated.
Plus, it doesn't sound particularly great.
No, it muffles the noise, and it reduces the red line because the turbo has to be sized. I mean, as it is, the turbo is big, And so that means that it's useless down low, but it gives you the power up top. But there's a fairly narrow window during which the turbo is happy, and above it is too fast for the turbo, and below it's too slow for the turbo. And so that's why people went to smaller twin turbos or even different, sequential setups. But, there's a lot of compromises associated with turbocharging that you're willing to make in a racing environment that I don't think make for a great driver's car. And that's why a lot of the cars were crashed backwards when they were new, because people say nothing's happening, more throttle, nothing's happening, more throttle, nothing's happening, more throttle. And then all of a sudden the horsepower literally doubles, and if the car is doing any level of cornering at that moment, is pointed anywhere other than directly straight ahead, then the car loops, and then you crash it backwards into stuff.
And it can loop for a number of reasons. Number one, it breaks traction at the rear, or even worse, starts to accelerate so hard that you start to understeer and then you lift. Now you've lifted in the rear, you're guaranteed what you're hitting
a collision.
I mean, this is why this car has the reputation. I had no moments. The car I found.
No, if you know the attributes and you know that power is coming at 3,500 RPM, then you can temper your inputs and behavior to never be caught out by it.
Right.
But if somebody's really frustrated or doesn't understand the sort of trade-offs or the dynamics, especially, if you imagine this being the top-of-the-line luxury model that such as a 911 could be in that period, then the type of person buying it is not necessarily a race car driver. That race car driver-oriented person is going to buy a Carrera instead. Because the Carrera at that time, there was the base 911, there was the 911S, and then there was the Carrera, which was the spiciest naturally aspirated car, although for the US market they all had the same engine, but you at least got the wider flares and the sports suspension and a tail. But in Europe, the Carrera at that point still was the old Carrera 2.7 MFI engine, so it had 210 horsepower, and that is basically indistinguishable driving experience-wise from a 73 RS. And so the Carrera still meant something in Europe. And then that was replaced for 76 with the 3.0 Carrera, which is a naturally aspirated high compression version of the 930 engine, 3 liters instead of 2.7. And that's a pretty unique car that's pretty fun to drive.
How much horsepower is that?
200.
Oh, wow. Okay. So for me, the crazy thing is that Porsche execs, of course, Germans that never understand their own marketing, right? And never understand their own product planning, didn't think they'd be able to sell the 400. So this was, as a homologation car, the first street car ever with the Porsche, the turbo engine, was given as a gift to Louise Piech.
Yes,
and
it has a tartan stripe on the side that says Porsche. It's narrow-bodied, it's silver, it's got a crazy plaid interior. It's very cool looking.
That is cool. But then they had to sell 400 of them within 24 months for racing homologation. Did not think they could do it.
This is exactly what happened with the 73 RS.
It's exactly what happened with the Golf GTI. It's exactly what happened with every cool German car ever. That we are never going to sell this, and shit, now we can't produce them quickly enough.
This happened with a 6.3 also.
Yep. It's just typical Mercedes, typical of German car companies. They don't know what they have.
Consumers want.
And they stumble across it. But yeah, they wound up selling with 22,000 or something 930 turbos overall when they only had to sell 400 and didn't think they'd be able to do it. And so ultimately the car got, obviously displacement pump 3 liters, 3.3, and then
added intercooling. Yes. Intercooling. This is 1978 model year.
And then killed off when the 964 came out.
Well, yeah, and we didn't get it in the United States. So the 930 was available in the United States market in 76, 77, 78, and 79, and then from 80 to 85, it wasn't available. And this leads to the creation of the Turbo Look, which is actually...
Why was it not
available? They couldn't meet emissions. And so we got the Turbo Look, which is, in the 80s, you need something that looks like that. And so that's actually the car to have, is the Turbo Look, because it has the flares and the suspension and the brakes of a turbo with the Carrera, normal, naturally aspirated Carrera engine with a 5-speed. And those cars are quite collectible now, and they're, I think, better to drive. They're slower than a standard Carrera, and they have more grip, so I actually still prefer the narrow cars because you get more playfulness and less weight and less drag. But if you could put a big enough naturally aspirated engine in a Turbo Look, then you end up with something that is far more compelling to me than a turbo. So yes, it's produced until 89. 1 year only 5-speed in 89. And then the 964 Turbo arrives for US 1991 model year.
All right, so 964, that's the car behind us, but that's your car, that's not a turbo. 964, big updates to the car. So power steering, 5-speed obviously for the turbo.
ABS.
Anti-lock brakes.
McPherson strut suspension instead of torsion bars.
Torsion bars. I have never driven one of those turbos.
It feels a lot like an 89 in terms of powertrain, which is kind of, we have this discussion about we simultaneously shit on old turbocharged cars and then also sort of enjoy them. And I think a lot of it has to do with gear ratios. 4-speed, absolutely non-starter. With the 5-speed, it's kind of okay. And you have this old-fashioned, very overtly turbocharged, it's still laggy. So the normal 964 went to 3.6 liters when it came out, but the 964 Turbo initially remained at 3.3 liters. Right. And they just didn't, and it was still CIS also, which the regular cars were not. The regular cars had gone to Medtronic the naturally aspirated cars went to Medtronic in 84. But the car, they still tuned it for more horsepower. I think in the US, the last of the 930s, I should also correct this because I've noticed a lot of people make this mistake. They refer to all impact bumper cars as 930, but 930 is only for turbocharged cars. But when people say 930 and they're referring to impact bumper cars, generally they should say G-body or impact bumper. Anyway, 315 horsepower from 282, still 3.3 liters, with the same 5-speed gearbox with a shorter gear shift linkage. It's crosses the threshold. Any 5-speed turbo, single turbo 930 to me, or turbocharged 911 is acceptable for use and like maybe even enjoyable. Although I would ultimately choose the RS product instead.
RS was turbo look.
RS would be narrow body but lightweight, GT3 effectively of its era.
So there was a 964 RS as well.
There was, yes. And so then they are initially 3.3 and then they go to 3.6 liters for the late 964 turbos. And they also get, for the first time ever, I think, on a production car, you get red brake calipers when the 3.6 turbo comes out. And those are megabucks now, and those are the last of the single turbo cars. Those were 94 model year only in the United States. And those are $600,000 now. Whereas a 4-speed 930 is like $100,000 or $200,000. A 5-speed 89 930 is like $200,000 or $300,000, as is a 3.3 964. So megabucks for 3.6. But last of the rear-wheel drive turbos, last of the single turbo turbos. And so those are kind of the beastly cars, and that's part of why they're so valuable, because it's the last of the like really exciting, maybe too exciting even, turbos.
Well, then this was not my video product. I was helping out. The producers wound up getting a GT2.
A 993 GT2?
964. Hold on, was there a 964? We got a 993. There was no, okay, sorry.
The first GT2 was the 993.
993. There was a Turbo S lightweight is what they had for a 964.
Yes.
So that was also still rear drive, kind of, still spicy.
That was basically a wide body 964 with a turbo, 964 RS with a turbo engine. So it has all those sort of, it is functionally, it's GT2. A predecessor of a GT2. Right. It's a pared down RSified rear wheel drive, because they were all rear wheel drive turbo.
Right. So and GT2 is of course GT3, which is our favorite Porsche, just with the turbo's engine, effectively, right?
Yes. I mean, there's bodywork differences and all that stuff, but fundamentally in ethos, yes.
Right. So they got that, and then 993 comes out. 993 comes out famously the last of the air-cooled 911s.
Yes, but it does gain in the turbo, four-wheel drive and twin turbos, which is aimed at reducing the complaints about turbo lag. And 6 ratios also helps.
And four-wheel drive.
Yes, to put down the power.
So 993 looks to me, I mean, I really have a hard time telling half of these cars apart, especially from the back. Like 964 and 993, I have to look at the reverse lights because I can't.
Oh, really?
Oh, please.
They look totally different to me.
Squished Beetles to me. But famously, 80% of all parts were new. This 993 was a big redo.
964, that was 87% new compared to the one before. Yes.
And 993 was 80. According to my research. So again, they keep doing the same shit over and over again. New part, but it does the same thing.
Yes.
Looks the same.
And the windows are interchangeable between all of them. You can put the windscreen or the quarter window or any of the glass in a 993. The doors also, yes, are interchangeable from a 1963 911 and a 1998 911.
That's so crazy. All right, 993 Turbo, that was also there. That Patrick Long drove. I was not part of that whole thing. They got... Strangely, I will say, in a documentary about 911 Turbo, we had a lot of GT2s, which are, I understand why they're cooler.
It's the pinnacle of the turbocharged 911.
Although if
you could almost categorize a GT2 as a type of turbo.
It is. And that's exactly how I did the narrative. Although had I chosen the cars, it would have been things that say 911 turbo on the back. Mm-hmm. I appreciated that.
That's very literal.
Well, it's okay. And you can talk about the racing versions of the car, but if you're doing a thing called the 50 years of 911 turbo. So that was the 993 twin turbo just pared down to rear wheel drive for racing homologation again. And then we get to the redheaded stepchild,
the 996.
I'm going to make a statement. There was a beautiful blue 996 turbos, 2002 turbo that we had there for filming. That was there. I did drive one. I did drive it. I would say that this is the worst 911 I've ever driven. I would also then go further and say it's the worst Porsche that I've driven. And then I would go one step further.
Worse than a 928?
And say it's the absolute worst sports car I've ever even, by a mile, the worst sports car I've ever driven.
Worse than a 928?
It was an automatic.
Oh.
It was horrible.
So this transmission is a 5-speed Mercedes-Benz
that starts
transmission.
in second.
Yeah, this is the one that would be used in like an E55 of that era or a Jaguar XJR.
I would rather not say E55. I would say fucking S320. It was tuned like it should be in a diesel S-Class. Starts in second unless you floor it, and then in which case it takes quite a while to downshift into first, and then slurs the shifts.
Isn't there a sport mode?
I don't remember. This is months ago. It was genuinely awful.
I think it has a sport mode. There's also the Tiptronic, the shift buttons.
So you can put it back into first if you want, but there were times it was ignoring me. It slurs the shifts. It's very slow for shifting. So you get and strangely hooked up to a torque converter. That was the worst sounding flat six I've ever heard. And that includes Subarus. It was just guttural and man, what a fucking horrible. So let me also be on the record as saying 996s aren't as bad as everyone says they are, right?
Yes.
They saved the company, right? Let's just zoom out for a second and say Porsche had to cost cut the shit out of this car or there would be no Porsche and there would therefore be no 911. I'm okay-ish with the cost cutting, right? I mean, they put the money where it mattered. The chassis of the car was great. The suspension components were great. The engines were mostly great. The suspension, like all of the important stuff was there. The interior was shit. By the time the turbo came out in 2002, they had figured out a lot of the interior stuff and
if
made
it was an expensive
nicer.
enough trim of the car, then a lot of the objections are addressed because there's leather where there's plastic normally.
But even the plastic got better with time, and so by the time you got to the facelift 996 cars, they weren't, which is that turbo look, front end. They weren't horrendous. They were just merely terrible interior wise. Now I had a 2000 911 996 and it was terrible. Like the interior of that car was horrid and should have never had a Porsche badge on it. But I didn't buy it for its interior. I bought it for its dynamics, which were pretty damn good. The automatic absolutely ruined this car. I mean, beyond. There's no.
So this is the first automatic turbo. It's the first automatic turbo that was ever offered was the 996,
and it was so bad that if you gave me the car, I would have said no, thank you. I mean, have you driven one?
I have driven an automatic early 997 turbo, but I've never. Oh wait, no, yes, I have. I have driven a silver one. And? Yeah, I mean, you drive it like a Mercedes. It's consistent with the type of person who is intended to be the 930. The 930, the Porsche Turbo 911 Turbo buyer is wealthier and older and looking for speed but not sport. They're the type of person who will drive a GT3 and say, "This ride's too hard. I want it to be
brakes."
Yeah, I want it to be more comfortable." And so it's a car that is much more likely to be cross-shopped with a Mercedes or
an SL.
BMW.
Right, an SL. It's effectively an SL competitor with a shitty interior and a terrible sounding engine. Although the transmission in any of the SLs is better than this was. Part of it is expectations based on the badge and what you're driving. Still a good steering, not great because it's 4-wheel drive. And it was really surprisingly civilized at very high speeds.
Yeah, easy to go fast. And that's the core difference between a GT3/Carrera RS and a turbo. everyone, when the Turbo came out in the 70s, everyone absolutely mind blown. The journalists were all mind blown about how easy and effortless it was to go fast. If you launched that car hard and just kept the pedal down on the Autobahn until you were going very fast, everyone just could not understand how it could be so easy and drama-free to go so fast, which is the fundamental reason why I think you and I object to the car, because we don't want to go fast. We want to have fun. Yeah. And, in a Daytona or a Countach or a Carrera RS or a GT3, you have more of a sense of going fast because there's less soundproofing and the steering is more alive and it's it's less stable because it's rear-wheel drive and all of those characteristics that make you feel closer to the mechanical stuff that's happening. The Turbo did the opposite of that, and it expanded the ability of Porsche to reach parts of the segments of the market that they had never served before. And so in some sense it's commercially beneficial, but spiritually the 930 is almost like a 928 in the sense that you think of it as a sort of more insular, fast but not joyful.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I will say that 996 as a whole really increased the band. I said this in the video, really increased the bandwidth of 911 because it was bigger and smoother and more comfortable, and it was more luxurious despite the crappy interior materials. It was a better luxury car and really did bridge the gap between 911 and 928. Right, it was closer. But 928, to me at least, the engine had some character. It was not an appropriate car for Porsche, in my opinion. It was just too quote-unquote big and heavy, even though by today's standards it's neither. Mm-hmm. But it was too much of a GT. And the 911...
It's too insular.
Right. The 996 Turbo really did take that over, especially once you can put an automatic in it. And let me be clear about this. I'm saying the car's terrible and whatever else. It's not... If you compare the way a 996 Turbo automatic drives to a 996 Carrera 2 base car with a manual, it's just night and day. Yep. Right? The engine in the base car sounds great. The engine in Turbo sounds uninspired. The Turbo is an order of magnitude faster. It's very fast.
It's a genuinely swift car.
Laggy as shit again, but the nice thing about a loose torque converter is you can make up for a lot of that.
It's not laggy like a 930.
Not much is, but yes. Yeah, especially with an automatic. You have torque converter and you have, the ability to just slip through gears and not lose boost on gears. So it just pulls and pulls and pulls and pulls and pulls and pulls. But other than someone who wants a Mercedes SL type car, I don't see why you'd buy a 996 Turbo.
I mean, with a manual, they're obviously desired and they are becoming increasingly collectible. And this baffles me, but I am just anachronistic. The world is passing me by, and I'm not picking up with the people who are 10 years younger than me. The 996 is a sentimental, emotionally significant car because it is the 911 from their childhood, and that is an aspirational car for them, and so that drives them to become genuinely collectible. And it will never be a car that resonates with me, but there is a whole generation.
996?
I mean, I like driving them, and I would own one, but it would be sort of like the way that I own a GTI, which is to say, I like all of the stuff that it does, and I would almost use it. I've owned one 996, and I quite enjoyed it, but it was $17,000. It was a speed yellow C2 coupe with an exhaust that was lowered, and I was like, wow, this drives like a 911. It was $17,000. I'm commuting in it. This is such a more exciting and interesting thing to commute in than my 3 Series diesel that I had before.
Which was probably twice as valuable, right? Not really, but I mean,
no, but it was more. I pocketed, $5,000 and bought a 911 and commuted in it. And so it was yellow and it had yellow seatbelts and yellow stitching and full leather and aluminum interior trim. It was as nice as you could ever make a 996, and I loved it at $17,000. But I loved that it was $17,000, and if it was $60,000, I wouldn't have loved it as much because it didn't. Yeah. It didn't provide me with $60,000 of utility. That car today is, I don't know, $25,000 or $27,000. It's still
a good value.
It's still a good value
because they do drive well.
Yes, it does drive well, but it's not a car that I vividly remember the first 911 I ever bought that was my own was an air-cooled car. It was an 87 Carrera 3.2, and I remember being like, this is one of the most memorable moments of my life. And I was sunset and I'm looking at the silhouette of the car and I'm like, I see a 911 silhouette, and I'm driving my own 911 and that feeling, I don't ever get anything remotely close to that when I drive a 996, but I do get it from air-cooled.
My first Porsche was a 996.
Yeah.
And I did have that feeling.
Yeah.
So I don't have the nostalgia for it. I mean, I don't miss it. I don't want another one, but I sort of made a deal with myself that I was going to buy myself a real sports car. And I went sort of through a whole bunch bunch of different stuff. And then I had friends who worked for the car magazines, and were like, just drive a 911. And I'm like, oh God, you guys with these, stupid ass engine Nazi sleds, blah, 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 blah. And I drove it and I bought one. It was just, there was nothing else on the market that drove the way that thing does. And this was towards the end of this would have been 2005. January or February 05 is when I bought it. So it was probably late 04. So it was still in dealerships new. I certainly did not buy a new one. But it was magical. I mean, the noise that it made, the fact that it came from behind you, that steering was epic. I mean, the steering was amazing. The brakes were unbelievable. And I just got in the car and I thought, I'd burn a Daihatsu for an interior like this. But then as soon as I started driving, I was like, this is it. It's done. I want one. So I can see how people can have that nostalgia moment. A, because it's of their childhood, and B, because it's an unmatchable driving experience outside of other 911s.
Exactly. Right. And that's where the big hang up is for me. But there's obviously a lot of people who don't feel that way because 996 turbos are $100,000 now. And, I thought they were very interesting at 40, at least for the performance you could get, because it's 420 horsepower and does 0 to 60 in 4.0 seconds. Or whatever
if you do a clutch dump and, the reality is they're not fast in the real world.
Yeah.
You can make them insanely fast with even more lag and whatnot. You know me and turbos. But I mean, if you're of that generation where you want ABS and you want stability control and you want dual airbags and you want some measure of safety and modern computer controlled everything, well then I see a world, I understand why people drive 996s. If on the other hand, you choose a 996 turbo and it's not because you want a four-wheel drive car and you couldn't find a Carrera 4, I don't understand your motives. You shouldn't have a Porsche. Is that harsh to say?
There are reasons to buy a car other than how it drives.
Yeah, I would buy that 1975 930 because of how it looked.
Exactly, and I think that the 996 Turbo probably does that for someone.
Is it that much better looking than a regular? Because
I don't know.
Maybe
it's it's the top of the line. It's the car that they aspire to. It's this thing.
I should say a turbo automatic. Let me qualify that. Because it's just.
do you think the manual saves it?
That automatic was so terrible that yes. Okay. I mean, if it was like we'll get on to the later stuff, but I was there in a 992 Turbo S. That's automatic too. Didn't bother me. Yeah, I mean, it was just a great automatic.
Transmissions have come a long way.
Right. Manuals haven't. They sort of stopped getting better, and that's why.
Okay, so 997.
997. So 997 comes out. I was in the industry when that happened, and I was sitting at a red light with a minivan next to me. And
I hate where this is going, but I know exactly where it's going. What were you driving?
I was driving a 997 just base turbo. It was not
manual.
Automatic.
Oh, it's the same transmission.
Okay. And I remember the light turning green and moving out and realizing shortly as we're moving off that my lane was about to end. And I thought, I've read all of these things from all the preview drives from these cars by my colleagues at Car and Driver and Road and Track and all these other people that this has variable turbine geometry turbos, VTG turbos, and it has no lag. And I thought, this is going to be amazing. This minivan is toast. And I hear, and the minivan floors it when they realize that my lane's about to end and they're doing exactly what you and I would do to the other person, like, show them boss, I'm in a minivan. And I floored it and the fucking thing wouldn't downshift. And I actually lost that drag race to a Chrysler minivan. And this is before the Pentastar. So this is probably like a 4 liter or whatever that shit pile was.
There was a 3.3 Mitsubishi engine that was used.
Or the 4 liter pushrod Chrysler. Either way, I was violent about this because the transmission refused to downshift. I was stuck in second gear and I remember tapping down to first and it ignored me. And I was just sitting there in this no man's land of 2,200 RPM in second gear, nothing. And I thought, my colleagues have gotten this wrong.
All you're doing is complaining about automatics. There's going to be an army
of not that better. That engine was laggy as shit still. And so if you have all of this technology in there to make it quote unquote lag free, which it most certainly was not, then don't make it almost as laggy as a 930. I do not love 997 turbos. Mm-hmm. Do you?
No.
Okay, so why are you fighting with me?
I don't know. I don't know.
997s were the high point of the water-cooled 911 for me. because I think they had the best steering of all of them. And I have driven a couple 997s that really lit my hair on fire. GT3s, which were amazing, and even a GT2, which was shocked the hell out of me because I don't love turbos. I adored that GT2. It was amazing. It was raw. It was guttural. It made fabulous noises. It had a great manual. It just did everything really well. So
why do you think there was such a difference between this 997 turbo and the GT2?
I probably
shouldn't the GT2 have larger turbos and therefore more lag?
It would possibly where I drove it, because I drove it almost actually possibly exclusively on track. I don't remember if I did.
Yeah, see.
Which, okay, it's a
that's
GT2.
How they get you.
But yeah, maybe that's how they got me.
But you were never drag racing a minivan in a GT2.
No. And admittedly, that minivan was, to your point, an automatic. Where you're stuck. You're just stuck.
You mean the 997 turbo?
Sorry, the 997 turbo.
They were both automatics.
Automatics. The minivan race, the car. It was the same feeling to me. The 997 turbo automatic was the same feeling to me as the 930 was. I'm trapped.
Yes.
There is nothing I can do. I'm at the mercy of turbo lag and gearing and whatnot. And I just can't beat a minivan. Yes. And I paid how much for a Porsche? It's just a non-starter for me.
Yep. I'm with you.
Non-starter. That's it. Otherwise, other 997 innovations, anything else that did? Well, 997 wound up getting PDK.
Mm-hmm. For the facelift.
That was transformative.
Yeah.
But I don't remember if I ever drove a PDK 997 turbo. Don't think I did. But transformative for the other cars. That's when the automatic went to being
a handicap to being like a genuine contender for
an alternative if you can't drive a stick, I guess. 991 turbo. You spend any time with them?
Yeah, I've driven at least one. It was silver with a red interior.
And?
I don't remember it.
That's not good. You remember everything. 991's my least favorite generation of 911s, I think. I didn't care for the steering when they came out. I thought they were probably one of the best looking generations. But I didn't care for steering. I didn't care for the cabin. I just thought it became a large Panamera coupe thing. And so I don't remember. I remember sliding a 991 around a racetrack quite a bit and being astonished at how dynamically competent the car was, both in terms of its limits and its limit performance. It was just genuinely amazing.
What flavor?
Driver car. Turbo. I mean, I think I drove all of them. In fact, I know I did Targa 4, Targa.
Well, those are not turbos.
Those are not. No, I mean, but I think I've driven every single variant of the 991. And including obviously GT3, which was my favorite of them all. R, which is a GT3 RS kind of effectively. But yeah, no, turbo, just again, respect for its speed because now it's kind of usable in the real world. And then of course it became automatic only after that. Just sort of fell off my Christmas card list because I don't care for an automatic car. But the 992, I don't like 992 better than I like 991. I don't care for the interior. There's too many screens. I don't love the infotainment. I think it's cheaper. It looks cheaper. It feels cheaper. It's a lot louder in the car between the road noise of the tires in the back for whatever reason and rattles. I just not quite as quality, I guess, as the 991 was. But holy shit, that car is so fast. And it's so usably fast all the time.
Did you drive or have you driven yet the hybrid one?
I haven't. So we had Henry Catchpole do that segment because he was on the launch of that car. And what he said is basically what I've heard everywhere else, which is the lag is now gone. Like the electric turbos have fixed the problem of turbochargers. And so I look forward to driving that. I don't think I will love it more than I love a GT3 or, God forbid, a 911 ST.
Well, yes, and this is the fundamental conclusion that we're reaching after shitting on these cars continuously for however long we've been doing it, is that the target demographic or audience for this car is not you or I. It's somebody who's richer and older in spirit, and maybe actually also. But it is a car you buy if you want effortless speed. If you're seeking speed with minimum drama, maximum safety, and in comfort and with features and all that stuff, the Turbo is the car you buy. And so in that sense, it is kind of the flagship of the range. And then the other cars you buy if you have more sporting intent, or if you're from a driving perspective, at least. Although now GT cars are being bought by everybody because it's such a mainstream brand and it's so desirable to have a
but it's also
Porsche
so
GT
obvious
car.
to even people who don't know how to drive them. You rev one of those things to 9,000 RPM and just shuts everyone up.
Yes. It's an unmatched experience. You can't get that in a lot of places, especially with a manual transmission.
I just drove a GT3 RS on the racetrack quite extensively in filming. The car is just indescribably good. It's just indescribably good. And having driven that right after spending quite some time in that Turbo S 50th anniversary edition, I can say there is a place for both of them. You said we're shitting on them. It's from a journalistic point of view, I see benefits to either, right? Effortless speed, like you said. And it always surprises me to find out people like Walter Rural, he drives a Turbo every day, doesn't want a GT car.
Well, I mean,
he's 143.
Every day I would drive an S-Class. It's kind of the same thing.
Why not have an S-Class?
I don't know, because what if he wants to go as quickly as possible with just, with his eyes closed? That's effectively what the car does, right? It's like an all-weather go as fast as you can. An S-Class, if you needed to hustle down a really, I was having this thought the other day because I used to daily a GTI, and one of the things that I miss about the GTI, which I don't get if I'm dailying my 265,000 mile E320 station wagon, is that if a very good piece of road comes along or some insouciant person in another motor car needs to be shown what's what, then the GTI is at my disposal to sort of like have
dispense with that insouciant peasant.
Yes, exactly. and I can't do that in my 265,000 mile E320 wagon. And so if you're daily driving like something that's kind of S-classy a lot of the time, but then all of a sudden if you encounter some really good piece of road, or you get a clover leaf that's clear, or you find some person who needs to be taught a lesson or something like that, or you're on a long distance road trip that also has some good roads on it, then it's kind of a good all-round device.
Sure, get an S63 AMG if you want an S-Class.
No, an S63 will never be able to do what a Turbo can do.
Oh, not what a Turbo can do, but it will show the peasants who's boss. I mean,
yeah, I guess.
On a back road. I mean, look, what we're saying is multitaskers, right? This is nice. It's always nice to have your daily that does it all.
Yes, and Turbo, I think, is very good at doing that, better than most anything else I can think of.
I don't think there's any car. So I always sort of use Nissan GTR as the benchmark for a car that I would take on a really, if I had to outrun the boogeyman. But I think it's, obviously the GTR is now very old. It's turbo at this point.
Yes. If you want speed with minimum, and you're just, the speed is the goal, and sure-footedness.
Well, right. So you could get even more speed with a Tesla Model S Plaid, for example. But what I like about even the turbos that I hate is that the chassis tuning is brilliant. So that turbo it's speed, but it's not it doesn't do, for example, what a computer controlled electric car can do, for example, which is just put it all down. It is ass first, right? It's coming around a corner with power oversteer, and it is a real true driver's car. And so what I really appreciate is that DNA has made it through all the way to 992.1 turbo is the latest one I've driven. I do love that. So you can take advantage of it as a real driver and someone who really wants to push above the limit.
Well, so now we've answered why Walter Roll drives a turbo every day, I guess.
I could never, I just can't imagine. I'm too much of a fan of revs, I guess, and induction noise to drive a turbo. Now that somehow there's crazy music coming in that, like a 992 turbo. There's stuff coming into that car that I know is fake, because I just don't think it's possible to have that much sound coming through the induction system of a car. So I think there's a speaker somewhere, but it's just so well done that it doesn't offend me. I don't know how they did it. Somebody may prove me wrong, and I'm not going to die on that hill. But I suspect they're doing something to it. But the overall experience is pretty damn good, unless you've driven a GT3. In which case, then it's just.
And now the GT3 rides in a civil enough way since the 991 came out that you could plausibly daily it.
Totally, you could easily daily a GT3.
Depends how old you are and what you're willing to tolerate.
I mean, okay, fair enough. But I would say I would have like a 997 GT3. I've said this before. Wow.
Yeah, not a great daily.
Oh God, no. Which makes it a perfect daily for me. Like I would love to daily that car, but you would need knee surgery on your left knee. Like, and you might break your right wrist. The shifter is really high effort. The clutch is brutal. The car just chatters at the engine. The clutch chatters your teeth out. I love it. Love it as a sports car.
Yeah.
But I think I would
a great classic.
I don't think it's any worse as a daily driver than listening like a Lotus Elise is.
No.
And far more interesting and far more complex.
Yeah. So we're not turbo customers. If you had to have one, which one would it be?
997. If something turbocharged would be a 997.
No. If you had to have a Porsche turbo.
It can't be a GT car?
Mm-mm.
Oh. Can I swap the motor out?
No.
Shit. Because then it would be the 930 and I'd swap. I gotta go. There's my bus.
Jason has to leave. I'm driving through a tunnel.
I don't know. Wow.
So Jason wants no turbos. No 911 turbos.
I want no turbos. But if I had to have one, right? So I mean 992 is out, automatic. That's the best, objectively, that is the best car of the bunch. Out because no automatic. No manual. 991 out because no automatic. No manual, sorry. For me personally. 997, best steering of the bunch.
Point 2, you could get with center lock.
I would never want center locks.
They're so sexy looking though.
They're sexy looking, but you can also get TSW Hockenheim R's with a cap that makes it look like that. And you have regular things. You
GT3s all have center locks.
Yeah, but they're stupid. I would have my GT3 custom built with lugs. It's dumb. The center lock is another, excuse me for saying, fetishized rich Porsche dickbag thing. Right? I understand the appeal of center locks. That's what they use in racing, blah, 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 blah. But you are buying a car that you can only torque the wheels down so many times before you have to throw them out. Come on. That's just bad engineering. It's stupid.
Well, Jason has evaded the question that I asked.
Damn it. It would probably be a 997 because I think it's probably the best of all of the 997. I've never driven a 964. And I don't always love the way 993s drive. So.
I don't like the 993 because it's the four-wheel drive.
So you would, of course, have another 964 because
I'd have a 964 3.6 turbo, yeah, because it's the least like offensive of the single turbo cars. I'd want a rear-wheel drive one, and I'd want the 5-speed, and that's the best of the 5-speed rear-wheel drive. Turbos.
Okay, I will defer to your knowledge because I have not driven one and say that
it's a car
sense.
where you engage where you purposely seek out the turbochargedness and it becomes an amusing part of the car's character, like you would with a Renault R5 turbo. You know, like then you're like embracing the turbo or an RS2, right? You're like, okay, I'm specifically signing up for like the period turboness of this car as a vintage experience.
What's the last one you'd have?
The last one,
yeah.
996, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't.
Oh, the 4-speed cars are so bad.
That's what I was thinking. Damn it! I thought that's what you were gonna say. That car is a bit of a heartbreaker.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
I mean, I literally like childhood bedroom wall poster car for me, and I finally bought one in 2014 or something like that. And I had a Carrera 3.2 at the same time. I would literally go down and look at I wouldn't even have to go down and look. I would, before I was walking out the door, before I'd go down to the garage, I'd be like, we're taking the Carrera 3.2. I put 500 miles on the car in 18 months of ownership, and then of the turbo. Meanwhile, I probably put 20,000 miles on a 3.2 in the same time or something like that.
I can see that happening. It's
when you have the choice, you always choose not the turbo. It was what I found.
This is the problem.
Like literally in my own garage.
I'm asked to do a sort of history lesson on turbo. And I have to be objective about that. I'm a journalist, right? I'm giving a history lesson. These cars had incredible speed under a strange set of circumstances or a limited set of circumstances, especially in the early
that
cars.
In the real world was not accessible.
But do I not give credit for a car that's 3 seconds to 60 quicker than the next quickest car tested that year? Like, that's a holy shit achievement. But it's also part of the journalist problem with numbers, where we fetishize speed and we really reward cars that remove, like 959 is a perfect example. We should have one in the studio so we can just throw paintballs at it. It's just one of those cars.
That's probably the biggest heartbreaker hero I've ever met.
And that's a 911 Turbo.
Yeah.
I mean, it foreshadowed everything that 911 Turbo became.
Yep.
You know, computer controlled all-wheel drive.
I think part of also this issue is that there are so many variants of the 911 and there are so many of them that are really great that even though like you could say that objectively the 911 Turbo is not bad, it's just that for every 911 Turbo there's like 6 other variants that are so much more gratifying as drivers' cars.
Cheaper.
And they usually cost less money.
Yeah, it's a bit tough one because even the bad ones are kind of great. And this is a lineage that has, let's be honest, lasted for 50 years. And one of the points that I make is 2025 down to 1975 is obviously 50 years. 50 years before 1975 was 1925. That was, in that year, I did a bunch of research to try to put that in perspective, how long 50 years is in terms of the march of progress. In 1925, less than half the households in the United States had
a car.
No.
Electricity.
So in the same amount of time that it's been since that 911 came around, back from that, half the households in this country did not have electric. That is a long, long lineage. And so when asked to do this, I said, yeah, absolutely. What else has lasted 50 years?
The Corvette.
Yeah. Also something else I would do a
The Chevrolet Suburban.
100% do a documentary on that. It's pretty cool when things last for 50 years, especially when you have car companies that have lasted for minutes.
The BMW 3 Series is almost there.
50
years.
50 years. It is 50 years.
I thought it was 76.
I think technically 75 production, so I think it's been called 50 years.
So the 3
Hagerty's
Series?
Driver Club magazine just did a 50 years of 3 Series thing. It's sitting on my kitchen counter right now. I haven't read it yet. But yeah, no, it's not that many cars. Like Accord's not 50 yet either. Camry's certainly not 50.
Civic.
Civic is 1974?
We're getting close. Anyway, Civic's
but
up
that's
there.
the point. Is,
Corolla probably.
This is a lineage of cars that has made it now 60 years, and one variant, pretty cool. Also, the second ever production turbocharged car, the first ever production sports car that's turbocharged.
BMW 2002 Turbo.
So that was not regular production. So 2002 Turbo, Saab 99 Turbo was really the first regular production. If you really want to look back, you have the Oldsmobile Jetfire.
And the Corvair.
And the Corvair, which were the first two, but they were very short-lived and not regular production model. They were a special variant.
They're also not really sporting.
Yeah. And then Saab 99 was the first regular production turbo, and then 930 was the first regular production.
A real pioneer.
Yeah. Even if it's not to
that we choose to select occasionally. It's a bang, not anything else.
What else would it be, Derek? Are you playing one of those childish games that's going to get you in trouble with HR again? What's the word that everyone puts in the captions?
Unalive.
Unalive, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. You will unalive a turbo and marry a regular 964.
That's what I've done.
Okay.
All right.
And I will go do. I'll just screw.
You're going to have a Volkswagen.
Volkswagens or something.
Yes. Just have exactly a Volkswagen orgy for Jason.
What the Porsche audience is going to tell me to do after watching this. Go fuck yourself and a Volkswagen. Well, I'm way ahead of you.
Well, on that bombshell, thank you for suffering through our enlightening, uplifting views on the 911 Turbo. We'll maybe see you next week or similar.